I love The Shawshank Redemption, a story about pain, suffering and oppression, and yet, as the story continues, we realise it's also about building relationships, perseverance and hope. We watch Andy suffer in a place where he should not be, and in many ways I feel the same about Brexit. 6 years of pain, suffering, and now oppression of our rights, freedoms and protections. But as this story goes on, we're starting to see people persevering, building pro-EU relationships and communities, and a hope that one day we will be part of the European Union again. And now year one of trade restrictions, with a Brexit that has caused 3 Brexit ministers to resign. The last Brexit minister, Lord Frost, said in his resignation letter to Prime Minister Johnson that he wanted to use Brexit to turn the UK into a lightly regulated, low-tax, entrepreneurial economy.
And that's the problem with Brexit. Business and Brexiteers don't want you having job security, holiday pay, a 5-minute break. It's a no to paying into your pension, national insurance, NHS, high streets, courts, police to keep our streets safe, or an education so you know your rights. They want more 0-hour contracts so they can fire you when you get injured, pregnant, or ill. To make you work beyond the 48-hour legal limit, and to pay for a computer, car, bike to help their business. And when there isn't enough work, they throw you to the Brexiteers, people who don't want you having the welfare you paid into.
I'm just eating to stay alive.
Only enough dole to survive on carrots and onions. What they want is to maximize their profits through deregulation, turning you and your lives into a Victorian-era hell. This is Brexit.
Thank you, Morgan, and welcome back, everybody. If this is the second video that you're watching of mine, please click that subscribe button. Hit that like button. The reason I ask is, the more likes, the more YouTube promotes my videos, and the more my videos are promoted, the more people realise not to vote Tory. Months after Boris Johnson signed the post-Brexit trade deal with the EU, there is significant economic damage, despite the promise of a golden age. As Brexit drags on, the cost is becoming clearer and voters are noticing. It drags on growth with red tape, high costs, and removed a large pool of talent that could help create companies and jobs in Britain, whilst leading to supply chain shortages, fuel shortages, high inflation, and frankly crap trade. The Prime Minister hailed it as,
"We've taken back control of our laws and our destiny."
If we did, voters appear to be increasingly unhappy with the result. According to a November poll by Savanta Comrades, most of the British population would now vote to rejoin the EU, including 1 in 10 who voted to leave in the 2016 referendum. A year on from signing the trade deal, here is a look at how Brexit affected British business and the economy, and how the early outcome compares with economists and analysis predictions. There is a massive market on our doorstep that can't be reached competitively. For customers, there's a price shock. Items from the EU cost more because couriers charge extra to cover the additional administration of customs checks and taxes, and every product takes longer to arrive at its destination. Besides the lost online sales from individual buyers, many European independent shops have concluded it's just not worth the cost or the hassle to trade with Britain. Britain's trade with the EU has declined, with firms hit by new paperwork and checks. As of October, UK goods trade with the EU was lowered by 15.7%, costing the economy $12 billion a month in trade. That is higher than the 2018 UK government analysis, which predicted a 10% decline in trade. But Brexit is still not complete. Even after 6 years, the UK has delayed implementing many of its post-Brexit border controls. From January 2022, where we are now, imports from the EU will need to be immediately accompanied by customs declarations, and food products will face extra physical inspections from this summer. Britain has made limited progress in signing trade deals that go beyond the agreements it enjoyed as a member of the EU. The UK signed its first wholly independent trade deals with Australia and New Zealand, but the economic boost from both accords is forecast to be limited to negative, with the trade favouring both New Zealand and Australia. A trade deal with the US, touted as one of the major prizes of Brexit, has gone due to Congress and the President being extremely angry with Brexit damaging the Good Friday Agreement, as well as the level of violence we're now seeing in Northern Ireland created because of Brexit, both in rioting and multiple pipe bombs being used across the country.
There will be no bilateral US-UK agreement if the Good Friday Accords in regard to the border are changed. And actually, how can they walk away from an international agreement? How do you trust that? We've made an international agreement. This is how we'll go forward. Oh, never mind. Oh, never mind. But anyway, again, their self-determination is up to them. Our trade relations are up to us.
It was made to look even worse when Lord Daniel Hannan, a leading Brexiteer who was one of the key people within the Brexit campaign, was absolutely taken apart in an interview with an American congressman who said we haven't even started talking about any sort of trade deal involving the UK and them hitchhiking onto our deal with Canada and Mexico.
Talk tonight of a sort of piggyback deal with the Mexico-Canada arrangement. Tell us, is that possible from where you're sitting, Brendan Boyle, that the UK could enter into that deal?
I serve on the committee that would have to vote on it, and I can tell you I haven't heard one word about that. I mean, it is just not a subject that ever comes up here. It does sometimes in the context of Northern Ireland. Aside from that, though, frankly, it's just not an issue that ever comes up.
I have to say, I'm obviously speaking to different people in Washington from the congressman. I've had a lot of conversations on both sides of the aisle about this, and I've come across a lot of enthusiasm in both chambers. I mean, obviously, there are distractions at the moment. We have this wrecking ball coming in of the coronavirus, but
well,
as we come out of it, we're going to...
But Brendan Boyle sits on the committee. You would have to vote on it. If he's never heard of it, and if it's not on any of the talks or any of the agenda this week, then presumably he would know if it was coming round the corner.
The congressman made it absolutely clear in a tweet later that day. Some seem to be confused, so let me explain. About 30% of trade is with Canada and Mexico. China accounts for another 13%. As for the UK, it is 2.5%, the same as Taiwan, Vietnam and India. So when some are confused why a trade deal with the UK isn't a high priority, now you know. And as I stated earlier, Northern Ireland is a key factor, and note he dropped it in the interview. Northern Ireland, that's the thing that comes up in conversation. The Republican and the Democratic parties have united from the Northern Ireland Protocol and the Good Friday Agreement being ridden over. They have actually decided no trade agreement is going to happen with the UK. It is not just up to the President. It is a combination of both the President and the Congress voting for a trade deal to happen. And for some Brexiteers, they never realised this. At the end of 2021, the UK was threatening to impose tariffs on more US goods in a dispute over steel duties. As of right now, trade is down. Even before Brexit regulations came into effect, the Brexit vote itself had reduced the size of the economy by about 1.5%, according to the Office for Budget Responsibility. That was due to the fall in international business investment and money and business going to the EU in anticipation of trade barriers. Since the UK-EU free trade deal came into force, the decline in trade volumes means Brexit is on course to cause a 4% reduction in the size of Britain's economy.
So, since the referendum, we've assumed in our forecast that leaving the European Union is going to reduce our long-run potential output by about 4%. And in our most recent forecast, as I mentioned, we think that the effect of the pandemic is going to reduce that potential output by a further 2%. And so far, the data that we've seen on the impact of Brexit, especially taking into account the fact that the new trading arrangements came in January, is broadly consistent with that assumption that we had, which is that it would reduce our long-run GDP by around 4%.
So still, after all this, Brexit is going to have a bigger impact than the pandemic on the long term.
Yeah, in the long term, it is the case that Brexit has a bigger impact than the pandemic over the long term.
A loss of 4.5% of GDP is a big deal, wrote John Springfield, Deputy Director of the CER, agreeing with the OBR's prediction. Governments everywhere would leap on a policy that would raise GDP by 5%. Yet there is some good news for Northern Ireland at least, who stayed inside the single market, and Dominic Raab promoted.
A cracking deal for Northern Irish business because they stay part of the UK customs territory, but they've got seamless access to the EU single market. There's no infrastructure.
It's amazing to see Brexiteers promoting how great the EU can be. However, there's a little problem that people aren't talking about in the mainstream media, and that's the fact that Northern Ireland is having to take regulatory information and instruction from the EU, but they have no say in what takes place. The country of Ireland does. So that means Ireland's influence on Northern Ireland has grown as a result of Brexit. When or if this becomes a mainstream media issue is unknown, but it is an issue. Northern Ireland has largely recovered from the pandemic, output only 0.3% below what it was in 2019. The rest of the UK is down by 2.1%. COVID-19 and Brexit created a perfect storm of unemployment and skills shortages that are still damaging supply chains across the UK, with declines in truckers and forklift drivers. 200,000 European nationals left Britain in 2020, pushed away by tougher immigration rules, racism, and the deepest economic slump in 300 years. That's the start of capitalism. That triggered staff shortages in sectors such as hospitality and retail, which have historically relied on EU workers, and led to empty shelves and a drop in tourism. A small pool of EU labour also worsened a fuel crisis in Britain, with a shortfall of tanker drivers contributing to a spate of fuel shortages during the summer. Johnson's government has since eased visa requirements for EU workers, and the driver shortfall has reduced as more domestic drivers have been trained. Brexit has pushed financial firms to move operations staff, assets, or legal entities into the EU, but the shift has been smaller than predicted, in part because the pandemic has hampered staff relocations. According to a survey by EY, London has lost about 7,400 jobs, down from an earlier estimate of 7,600. That's far short of some estimates made before Britain left the bloc. In 2018, Bruegel, a think tank, said that London could lose 10,000 banking jobs and 20,000 roles in the financial service industry. Britain's financial firms are still waiting for full access to the EU single market, something that relies on the EU granting a so-called equivalence decision. But progress has been at a glacial speed as disputes over Northern Ireland have soured EU-UK relations. Longer term, bigger threats to London are likely to come from New York, which has grown its share of derivative trading, and countless lost opportunities of new jobs being created because companies have moved to the EU. Now this is a big one. These are the businesses that have left the UK since the Brexit referendum. Dyson. Ahead of Britain's departure from the EU, the chairman of Dyson announced that his firm would move its headquarters to Singapore. Sir James Dyson was accused of hypocrisy, having been an ardent supporter of Brexit. Honda shut its Swindon plant. Ford, the company closed its plant in Bridgend, which resulted in 1,700 job losses. Barclays, the bank has moved 166 billion worth of assets from the UK to Ireland. Lloyd's of London, the global insurance and reinsurance firm, said it was working on transferring all European Economic Area business to its new Brussels subsidiary before the end of 2022. Jaguar and Land Rover, 2019 announced it would be cutting 4,500 jobs, the majority of which would fall in the UK. In 2020, 5,000 jobs and temporary contracts in Solihull were lost. British Steel, 2019, British Steel owners blamed Brexit-related issues for their problems. In 2021, the future is still uncertain with our US trade deal. HSBC, shifting ownership of its Polish and Irish subsidiaries from its London base to France. Panasonic, moved its European headquarters from the UK to Amsterdam. P&O shifted the registration of its shipping vessels to Cyprus. Sony moving European headquarters from the UK to the Netherlands. AXA, the insurance company, moved UK staff to the Republic of Ireland due to Brexit. UBS moved 32 billion euros out of the UK. EBA, the European Banking Authority, closed its Canary Wharf office and will reopen in Paris, France. Schaeffler closed 2 UK plants because of Brexit. FlyBMI went bust, cancelling all flights with immediate effect and blamed Brexit as the main cause of its collapse. EMA, the European Medicines Agency, has closed its doors in the UK and has cost 900 jobs. British firms have also been frozen out of European research projects and public procurement contracts. MoneyGram will move its European headquarters out of London to Brussels. Nissan, it has reversed its plans to invest its new manufacturing capacity in the UK, citing continuing uncertainty around Brexit. Could end UK production as early as 2027. Body Shop moves some of their operations to Europe. Michelin closed its factory in Dundee in 2020, nearly 50 years after it opened, and where 845 people are now unemployed. These increases in numbers are of a magnitude that you would expect when the country is hit by a major economic or political crisis. Brain drain from Britain delivers financial boom to Estonia. Oxford University recently did a study that found a seismic shift in the number of UK citizens already living abroad who had decided to go a step further by obtaining an EU state passport since 2016, showing how Britain's vote to leave the EU pushed many individuals into long-term decisions. It said that migration from the UK to the EU countries has increased by 30% compared to pre-Brexit numbers. Britons living in other EU countries who decided to obtain EU member state passports as well as their UK ones had increased by 500% overall and by 2,000% in Germany. Moreover, the study found that UK migrants are among the most educated and skilled of those from any nation, with one of the highest net average income rates, suggesting that Brexit has begun a steady drain of the most talented and productive people to the continent. In Germany, UK migrants were among the highest earners, bringing in an average of €2,812 a month in 2019, just behind those of Austria and the US. There are now about 1.2 million British citizens living in the EU, between 120,000 and 150,000 of which are in Germany. In the 4 years since the Brexit referendum, 31,600 Brits have been granted a dual British-German citizenship. 2019 saw 14,000, compared to 622 in 2015. Imagine a small football club gets a game against one of the footballing giants, and the supporters are split 52-48. 52% are saying, we're going to win 10-0, and 48% saying, we're going to get thumped 10-0. The final result comes in. 90 minutes has been played, final whistle blown, and we've lost 1-5. Who really won? To me, that's Brexit, and we've just made it even harder to grow the economy, which means less tax, and that's less money for the already damaged services, high streets, and society, making the poorer even poorer. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and I'd love to say thank you to all of my Patreon supporters who really help make this channel come alive. If you too would like to become a Patreon supporter, it is cheap as a coffee a month, or you can give a one-off payment if you'd like to buy me a coffee through Buy Me a Coffee. I hope you enjoyed my political observations this week. If you'd like to support me, please share the video with others and post about it on social media. If you're keen for more, subscribe, comment, like, and hit that notification button. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on Political X.